Hello and welcome to the Faith Building Podcast, episode 6 already. And it's so funny how life is playing out. Vladi and I just talked about something totally random, not connected to the podcast. And at one point, I stopped her in the mid sentence and said, wait, we have to press record. This matches totally our today's topic of being flexible. So let's just go back 5 minutes in time and start all over again when I ask Vladi the following question. I said, Vladi, did you recommend watching Lost on Netflix to me? Because I remember, I think you watched it and you liked it.
I loved it.
You
This
loved
is
it. And
this is
I'm down with season 1 right now. And to be honest, not that I'm confused, but I thought I get the message behind the series. It's probably about faith, makes sense with our podcast, and about being flexible and adapting to the moment and looking at your fears and all the things. But now the little boy got kidnapped, where I thought this deviates totally from the other topic. So is it a big movie studio like the movie with Jim Carrey, Truman Show, where everything is a movie set and he's the only one being born into the movie set, basically, or put into the movie set? So there are different things. And then you said something very beautiful. What did you just mention?
was it about you only need one person who loves and believes in you to get anything done in the world. And it's true.
That's true.
And
And then
and
you
I
said
love
something about the last season
last
of
season,
Lost.
yeah. So basically, today's episode, we were going to talk about flexibility. And flexibility is really important part. But how we came to talk about Lost, I'm not really a TV person. So for me to actually get hooked to something, it takes a real vibrational high for me to actually watch it. And I love Lost. I love all the seasons. I finished all the seasons, which is many. It's 6 seasons. So, I think that's probably the longest kind of version of series I watch. But I love what Norman said, because there's so much stuff happening in our daily life, and we have this vision at the end. And we sometimes, we're building faith. That's the whole point of us helping you. How do you build faith? And until the very right end, when you find clarity, and like Steve Jobs said, you can only connect dots looking backwards. So sometimes it's just difficult for us to look ahead and see what's coming. But if we do our best and learn, and what I love about the series is this, it is really about the unity. At the end, I understood one thing, which is really core of my beliefs, is you cannot create success alone. You are raising up together. So we all get better when we're together, when we're community, when we're in unity, when we help each other, when I call it push and pull effect, because we all have that. If you find yourself dissatisfied or, not in a place you'd like, you have friends. If you surround yourself with the right people, I'm going to say that lovingly, that kind of push you and you push yourself. But also the pull effect is the desire, the vision, the would love this, and it kind of drives you. It's the passion that fuels you and it fuels your desire. But going back is, I love the series because things that are happening, you think like, oh, finally I understand. And then something happens and you're like lost again. I think that's why it's called Lost.
That's why it's called Lost, probably. Yeah.
Because you lose yourself and find yourself and lose yourself and find yourself. But this really is life. It really is. And I like, because it's a little supernatural. Also, there's like mystery. It really is life. We see it black and white sometimes, and it's what we've told. And I just was listening to Oprah Winfrey and Gary Zukov interview. And his book, which I'm in love with, and I started re-listening to it, is Seat of the Soul. And she is interviewing him, and he said, the consciousness and the mind mastery and everything about the world we know now with the conscious mind and the development, we're actually personal development field, last 2 generations, we have grown way more than all the million years before. So he said all we need. And then yesterday, I was actually listening to Eckhart Tolle and again Oprah Winfrey on his new book, and I'm going to actually look this up because I just ordered it yesterday. I actually have not read it. And it's so interesting because this lost really fits into the whole thing. We find ourselves, we lose ourselves, we find. But where is the faith? Where is the higher mental faculties we need to use? And sorry, I'm not paying attention, but it's called A New Earth, the life-changing follow-up to the Power of Now. Now, I haven't read this particular book by Eckhart, and we did mention Eckhart a couple of episodes ago, so... But you find yourself, lose yourself, find yourself, lose yourself. You think you've got something figured out because something's going well, but then you realize that actually it just fits something else. And it's like this law of rhythm. Tide goes in and tide goes out, and in and out. And if we pay attention by having faith and using the higher mental faculties, not just the senses, but higher mental faculties, and really build a faith, we can start feeling the vibration. And it's really what you impress in your subconscious mind that is dictating the vibration you're in. So what frequency you're sitting on today? Like, ask yourself that question. What frequency am I sitting on? Now, if you don't understand, because obviously, if you're not in a personal development field, this question might sound a bit, what is the frequency I'm sitting on? It's if you feel the vibration of love, you attract love around yourself. If you feel frustrated, then sometimes you may pay attention to things going, sometimes we say it's like a wheel. One thing breaks and all the things break. It's not really that they all break at the same time. It's we activate the things and the cause and effect law, the effects just become stronger. And that's what happens. But losing yourself and finding yourself, I think it's like a push and pull effect. It goes like the feng shui, it's the male and female energy. We work together the best. And sometimes we need to give more percentage. It's like marriage or partnership, and really business partnership, any kind of relationship. It's not a 50-50. And this is not me, actually. It's Brené Brown who was talking about this amazing 50-50 relationship. It's like she said, sometimes you feel you have 70, so you feel in the other person. And it goes in any kind of relationship. In a business, you have a great days where you feel like you could do 200%, and then you come and you drained. So it's the balance, and it's how well we complete each other, really, where you say, okay, take my extra 30%, you need them today. And obviously this is a metaphorical sense, but this, if we learn to work like this with everyone in our life, again, pay attention, I'll hand it to Norm so he can talk more about flexibility and who we have around ourselves. But that Lost series, love it, because you are continually creating new situation and you think you've got it figured out and you don't. And this is life. We die at the end of the time whenever our time comes. And we never get to the point where we get it figured out. It keeps happening because life happens with us. And I remember, it doesn't happen to you. It happens with you, meaning the vibration you're in creates the life. So you create life by what vibration you put yourself in. And I'll hand it to Norm.
I totally agree. And I love what you just told me right before we pressed record about Lost. You said, roundabout in season 5, you get a clue what's really happening, what it's all about. And in season 6, it's kind of closing the loops. So it closes one loop after the other. So I just thought what you just mentioned, Vladi, it's like life. We are going through life. We're going through season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4. And the closer we get to the end of our life, the more everything makes sense that you had happening in season 2, episode 5, I don't know. And in season 6, in the last season of your life, it kind of really closes the loops, and you look back probably at your life. I'm not there yet and you're not there yet, where you say, oh, everything is like, has a golden thread, or in Germany we call it a red thread going through my life. Everything makes sense. Now I know why this had to happen in the past and why this happened. We just need to have faith. And that's basically the base of the podcast, why we created it and called it the Faith Building Podcast, that we really need to have faith, like with me and Lost, that I need to watch season 2 and just bear with the season. And J.J. Abrams, who's the producer and director, and he's also the producer of Manifest and also another series that I love. I just lost the title. So I think he's really with us. We need to attract J.J. Abrams for our podcast, for sure.
I
hope
love
he's
Manifest,
still alive.
so this is funny you mentioned it.
Yeah, we have to check with Phil if he knows him. We need to get a hold of him. You mentioned Oprah Winfrey and her talk with Gary Zukav. And you also mentioned, coming back to Lost, that it's all about, I call it community, working together and doing things together. This brings me to Neil Donald Walsh and Conversations with God. And Neil at one point mentioned the most important message of, if you listen to the Audible version, which is at least, as I remember, 23 and a half hours.
Yes.
He said the most important message is in minute 3 or 4. So right in the beginning of the book, which brings us back to Lost, probably when we look back at one point, we realize, oh, the main key is in episode 1 in season 1. But you will know that in season 6 when it finishes. And he said about the most important message from God was, we are all one. Mm-hmm. We are all one. And this touches something else that you, Vladi, just mentioned about the energy you're sitting on and the energy you're giving. I realized and talked about that on Monday with my community that if you really want to get something, let's say you want to get more money, the classical thing, you want to get more money. Can you find someone, which is also an idea from Neil Donald Walsh, can you find someone who has less money than you? And I can assume, as you're looking into a laptop, and I do the same, we have enough money to buy a laptop. So there are people out there that cannot afford a laptop, and they appear to have less money. Could you go to a person that has less of what you want and give them some of yours? Well, your conscious mind probably says, but then I have even less, I want to get more. Yes, but it's all about the energy. If you show the universe that you have so much that you can eventually give something from it to others, you're sending the automatic energy of I have enough, of prosperity, and you will get prosperity back. So if you want to have more love from someone, give more love, not to this person. It's not a one-on-one game. We are all one. Give it to an animal, give it to a stranger, give it to a neighbor, give it to a child, give it to yourself.
Love it.
And the fear of we don't have enough, we are lost if we give even more, is just not true. Because like you said, everything at the end of the game makes sense. So this brings us to our topic of today with being flexible. Can we just be a little bit more flexible in the things we do and don't say, I have to work harder to get more? No, how about I get what I want? If I want more love, I give more love. If I want more money, I give more money. The only thing we have to pay attention is the energy we do it. If we do it like in a calculated way and say, oh, this sounds like a smart strategy. If I give a homeless person some money, I will get money back from the universe. No, the energy we go into the game is lack. Like I don't have enough. I use a strategy and this strategy will help. And I always ask the people, if you're a person that realizes, oh, I'm giving something based on lack energy because I hope for something back. I play bingo because I want the jackpot. I play the lottery because I want to win. It's always lack, 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 lack. Can we be more flexible and realize how little I could give someone something that it feels like joy instead of lack? So don't give someone $5, but give him 50 cents. If this feels still loving and you say, yeah, 50 cents I can spare. So find a balance, be flexible and go away from this rough structure of this world I have in mind is the only right one.
I love what you said because it brings me back to unconditional, the word unconditional. And it really is what you describe. And that is, if you want to do something, do it because you would love to do it. You feel that you want to do it and you actually feel joy. And this is our favorite topic. If you don't feel joy in doing things, now don't get me wrong, we will do things that we don't feel joy. And sometimes we need to recondition ourselves. So obviously the early days of reconditioning are not really joyful. It just takes discipline. However, as Norman was pointing out, I remember this really comes back to competition over creativity. If you compete and you compare yourself with others, what others do, what others give, what you attach to your name. And as you were talking about giving, I remember, I know, in fact, personally, people who give, but they don't talk about it. Like if you look out there in the world, people are, this is why I'm giving and I'm donating this money and I'm doing this for it. And if you're raising money, obviously you have to make an awareness for people what you're doing. However, there are people who have just been doing this behind the scenes because they feel that they can. And that is where the law multiplies and comes back to them again. And like Norman pointed out, just because if I give something to Norm doesn't mean that it's going to come back from him. And we sometimes have this wrong expectancy and assumptions. And expecting the best is always a good thing to do. However, it is sometimes backfiring us because we're expecting it conditioned and not unconditionally. If you give whatever you give, and as Norman said, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's love, it doesn't really matter what it is in your life. But when you're giving, give it unconditionally. And that's the key.
It is. And I just realized that if you ask for more money, money can come back in all possible ways, like you just shared. It's not coming from the same person and it's not coming in the same form. And I realized looking back the last couple of days, I got invited to dinner or to lunch so often that I saved money on the food, which is a gift, which is energy coming back as well. But as long as you're not flexible and they say, no, it needs to be on my bank account, you're looking at the wrong place and you're wasting a lot of possibilities to feel joy in the moment for the thing that is. We are all one, it's all connected. And even though you feel lost from time to time, just be aware and give more of what you have. And this is actually the key to live in the now. What can I give? What can I do in the now? And you can even go that far and make a little calendar and say, from 9 to 10 on Monday, I am more love, which means I give more love. And from 10 to 11, I am creative. So in this hour, you're creative. Just make sure that in this hour you don't wash your clothes, because for washing your clothes, I assume you don't need to be creative. So look at your daily schedule and say, can I be loving, caring, giving, fascinated, creative? Can I be this in that time frame? And just pinpoint it down to different kind of emotions and things you want to have more in your life, and you will see how your life will change if you're flexible and if you're just playing the game in a different way.
I love that. And another stream of faith that you can take flexibility to is actually really coming down to having your goals and vision. So we set the goal, the vision, and it's who we become in the process that is more important than actually reaching the goal. However, I remember one of the best lessons we learned both with Norman from Bob Proctor is you do not have to worry about how. So it is not the how. We sometimes, with the current awareness and perception we have, we tend to predict things and just line them up the way we would love them to happen. So in order to get where I would love to go, in our mind, we set these steps, like almost the staircase going like, this is how it has to happen, but it won't. And it is very unlikely it will happen the way you would love it. So having that vision and setting that goal as you would love to build more faith. Obviously, you will build more faith bonus strengths, but how does flexibility connect to this? Because if you are connected to your inner power and to using your higher mental faculties, the way you need to become flexible is you feel intuitively that you need to take another step or you need to do something else, you have to let it go. Because flexibility is the way you feel like, okay, this seems to be like the next right step for me, and I need to do it this way because I feel intuitively that's the way. Then that's the flexibility you need to actually now use and say, okay, I'm not going to do it the way I originally planned because it can happen this way. Now, more playful you become with this, and this is our maybe next topic because we do love talking about being curious and playful. It's when you add fun in it, it just happens faster. And it was going back to Norman's earlier conversation. It's sometimes we just need to add fun element into it. once we start having fun, we almost stop creating the resistance, like we actually feel the ease, and that's the word, the ease. And if you feel the ease and flow, it just happens because then you're sitting on the frequency with the high vibration where you need to be. So flexibility also means that you are just adjusting to the way that comes to you. Listen to your intuition and feel, because whether you believe it or not right now, you always know what is right for you, because that feeling is an indication. It's the conscious awareness of the vibration you're in. That is actually called feeling. And that, it gives you the guts, like, this just doesn't feel right for me. And just because it doesn't feel right for me does not mean it's not right for Norman and someone else. And that is another thing, being flexible. Remember, just because something's right for someone else, it doesn't have to be right for you, and vice versa. It is always, we're so unique and gifted that we need to pay attention to our own feeling and vibration.
You're just such an amazing topic, Vladi. If you feel it different than someone else, we have to realize that reality as we think about it just does not exist. Like Albert Einstein said, everything is relative. Nobody really understands what he meant with that. We just come from a different angle that we get awareness of what he really meant about reality does not exist. Everything just is. Everything just is. Look at the world, how it is, and draw a picture of it. And ask your neighbor to do the same. It's what Vladi just shared with the feeling. My feeling is different than her feeling, than your feeling. And if you look at the picture of the world that you draw and the picture of the world that somebody else drew, you will realize there are differences. So the first step to realize and being flexible is reality as we would love to have it does not exist. Every person on this planet has his or her own model of the world. What we think is good, what we think is polite or unpolite, or appropriate or inappropriate, or good or bad. Of course, depending on our upbringing, on our values, on our beliefs, on everything that happened, in my case, the last 47 years. I have a model of the world. Vladi has a model of the world. In some things, the models are aligned. When you have a business relationship, when you have a private relationship, when you have friendships, parts of the model align. And I cannot imagine that you will meet someone on this planet where the whole model of the world is aligned. It's just, not even with the same upbringing. Even if you would have two twins, totally identical twins with the same upbringing. One likes white chocolate, other one likes brown chocolate. One likes sun, one likes winter. So this creates a different model of the world. And we are so stuck sometimes in our model and say what you just shared, be more joyful, have more fun in the moment, be more childlike, I want to say. Then probably the belief pops up like, oh, I cannot do that. I'm 47 years of age. I cannot behave like a child. What do other people think? It's just my model of the world. Can we be more flexible and say, if I look at the result in my life, what I have at this very moment, it's based on my thoughts, on my emotions, and on my actions. Therefore, if I want to change my result, I need to be flexible and start changing my thoughts about something, which means I need to change my model of the world. And this is basically the main key that we want to gift you today. Be more flexible. Look at your model of the world. Look at your result and say, if my model of the world is kind of the blueprint for the outcome that I call life, and there are some parts that I don't like, I can, of course, change my actions. But if the actions always are drawn back to the blueprint, my result will not change forever. I need to change the blueprint. I need to be flexible, even though I might be lost from time to time. Just look at your blueprint, look at your result and say, hey, this I like, then keep it. And this I want to change, then change it.
I love that. And it brings me to what I like doing. It's like, how could I do this differently? So, we get habitual. We are habitual creatures. And some of the habits are not really helping us. So what if you could do things differently today? So if you usually drive somewhere take a bus. I mean, I know this is a silly example, but it can be the way you're doing things, the way you're getting somewhere, because it is challenging sometimes and it's reprogramming the way we used to do certain things. So what if I approach this differently? And I remember it is the perception thing where you look at the activity and we become habitual even in the decision making. So how could we make a different decision coming from somebody else's point of view? You know, when we kind of like look at somebody who has the results we admire, and we can look and say they would do this. And this is why masterminds are great, because you have several people who will give you a different point of views, and that will allow you to be more open-minded, going, that's interesting. I never thought of doing it that way, but I should. But so many times we know how to do things and we just don't do them. So flexibility is also really coming down to the playfulness. And I would suggest, I know we're talking about playfulness, but I would suggest for a next episode, I think we should talk, which is actually, I'm using in my book, which I'm still in the process of writing, but I'm using Norman's model of the new world, which we're creating. And we love this subject, especially with Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks, because she does talk about you only put the stuff in the vortex you love. And in this way, we started really masterminding on what are the things we're putting in our new world. This is your world. And how does it differ from the 3D world? Obviously, this is imagination. Well, we could maybe touch upon that next episode and really talk about what is it you're putting in your world that then you have to experience the thing in real life, because that's what you put there.
I totally agree, and I love it. And as a closing statement from my side is a story that just popped up while you spoke about the power of masterminds. I had the pleasure to work with Bertrand Piccard a couple of times. He's a gentleman from France, Switzerland, France, and he had the vision to build an airplane that flies with pure solar energy one time around the world, where every manufacturer of airplanes said this is not possible. Like everything that you would have to consider, it just will not work. Everybody knows who followed the story a couple of years ago, it already worked. And in his keynotes, he always mentioned that he popped a question. And the question was, what is 1 + 1? And most of the people said it's 2. And he said, no, it's 3. Let me explain. And he said, 1-on-1 could be 1. If we have 2 people, let's say in a team, and they are totally aligned, which means you have 1 + 1, one person plus another person, they have the same opinion, equals 1. If you have 2 people, 1 + 1, it could also be equal to 2, which means we have 2 different people, they have different opinions. Everybody keeps their model of the world and their opinion, which means we have 1 + 1, but 2 different opinions. And what he loved to do for his team building and how he set up the teams, he said 1 + 1 could be 3. It's 1 + 1, and each and everyone has their own opinion, which would be equal to 2. But now, out of those 2, and this is what Vladi meant about the mastermind and the power of masterminding, out of those 2 opinions, you create a third one. And this is where 1 + 1 equals 3. You get the best out of both worlds. You create it together. You create something totally new. And looking at this podcast, this is actually what we do. Vladi, we thought about our private and mentorship and masterminding conversations. We just create the best and share it with the world. And if you're not aware about it, we just pop the topic while we speak. We have no notes. We have no preparation. It just comes fluently. Whatever comes, comes. And sometimes it's fully aligned. Sometimes we humble and stumble a little bit to the left and the right. And hey, that's just life. We need to be flexible, but we want to keep it honest and be present and just let go through us what comes in this very second, rather than preparing it for hours and writing notes and looking at papers. That's not our way.
I love that. I think my final statement would be really aligned to yourself and just do something today differently than you used to. Even if it's just the one thing, but challenge yourself every day to do something in a completely different way than you used to. Even if it's brushing your teeth with the left hand, you know, like recreate the habit and do something. Sometimes we look at things that doesn't have to be something what we consider to be a huge. It can be something significantly small, but when you learn to do it in a greater way, it will make an impact, and positive impact on your life. So that's what I will leave you with.
Wonderful. Then we say thank you very much for listening or watching, and we see and hear you again in episode 7. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.